Pedro de Serrano was born in 1508 and grew up in the southern part of Spain. He was not a known nobleman or soldier. He was just an ordinary Spanish man who grew up during the time Spain was at the peak of exploration and sailing towards the New World. In that time, the youth of Spain were divided into two paths: stay in their own country and seek a simple livelihood, or try their luck in new lands with the expeditions. Serrano was among those who chose the second path. At the age of 20, when he started joining expeditions, his personality was not arrogant. He was just quiet but steadfast, and had practical thinking as a sailor. Discipline and the ability to follow the captain's orders are important, but above all, the strength of body and mind is needed. In 1528, he boarded a Spanish ship that would sail to the Caribbean Sea, near the coast of present-day Nicaragua. That region is known for its shallow reefs and dangerous coral reefs. At the beginning of the voyage, there was nothing unusual. Like other voyages, it was part of the regular trade route of transportation between the Spanish colonies. But one night, while the sea was dark and stormy, the ship suddenly ran aground on a shallow reef. In just a few hours, the sturdy sea vessel was broken by waves and rocks. In the chaos, most of the crew drowned. Some were swept away by strong waves. Serrano, because of his strength and ability to swim, was able to hold on to a piece of wood and swim towards a small island. When he reached the shore, it was night. He had no idea where he was. Tired, injured, and almost without strength, he lay down on the sand. At that point, he still didn't know that he was the only one left alive from his ship. The next day at sunrise, Serrano clearly saw his situation. The island was small, full of sand and rocks, no trees and no clear source of water. From his vantage point, he could see the sea in all directions. Here began the true fight of his life. He did not panic. Instead, he used the discipline and practical thinking he learned as a sailor. He explored the island to find out what could be used. He saw there were shells and small sea creatures that could be eaten. He also discovered that there were turtles that came ashore every afternoon to lay eggs. Fortunately, before the ship completely sank, he was able to keep his knife hanging on his belt. This became his main tool. Using his knowledge of the sea, he caught turtles and used their meat as food. Their shells would eventually be used by him as containers for rainwater. In the early days, his thinking was focused on only one goal: stay alive until a ship passes by. He did not know that the island was far from the usual route of sea vessels. If he knew that immediately, he might have lost hope. But Pedro de Serrano does not easily give up. His experience at sea, his physical strength, and his faith became the foundation of his survival. In that time, he had no certainty if help would come. The only thing he had was himself and the determination not to die in the middle of the sea. And here began a story of survival that would last many years and become one of the first and most admired recorded castaway stories in history. In the first year of Pedro de Serrano's stranding, his biggest enemy was not hunger, but fear and confusion. He still doesn't know life on the island. He doesn't know when it will rain. He doesn't know how often turtles arrive. Every day is an experiment. In physical aspect, his weight quickly dropped. His food is limited to shellfish, shrimp, and occasional turtles. Because there is no proper system for storing rainwater, he is often thirsty. There are days when he has almost nothing to drink. When there is no rain, his body weakens. His head hurts, and he feels dizzy under the intense Caribbean sun. In the mental aspect, the fight is heavier. He would be annoyed by the noise of the ship, by the captain's orders, by the footsteps of the crew. Now, only silence is with him. Long isolation or solitude caused paranoia and depression. There are nights when he can't sleep, wondering if another ship will come. By the second year, around 1530, he began to have a system. He already knew where the rainwater would collect. He learned to prepare before the rainy season arrived. He used turtle shells as storage. Here he solved the biggest problem: dehydration. But it does not mean that life has become easier. His body gradually changed due to constant exposure to sun and wind. His skin thickened. His hair and beard grew very long. She no longer had decent clothes. The fabric was torn and completely decayed in the climate. In her second year as well, she felt the monotony and repetitive routine more. Every day, the days were the same: looking for food, watching the fire, observing the sea. No change, no new events. This kind of routine, although helpful for survival, is tiring for the mind. By the end of the third year, his body became stronger. It had adapted to the climate. But in the mental aspect, the situation was more dangerous. At this point, he began to doubt if any help would come. Several times he saw ships in the distance. Several times he lit a large fire to make smoke, but no one answered. The repeated failures were painful. In every ship that departs, it seemed like his hope was gradually fading. At this point, he learned to drink turtle blood when there was no rain for a long time. This was desperation to quench thirst during times when there was no water for a long time. Within 3 years, Serrano became a different person, physically and mentally. From an ordinary sailor, he became a person living according to the laws of nature. No civilization, no certainty. Around 1,532 inches England. In the 4th year of Serrano's stay on the island, an event occurred that he did not expect. One early morning before the surroundings fully brightened, he woke up to a strange sound. Not waves, not wind, a thud on the sand. In the middle of the thin smoke from his fire, there is a moving shadow. Within a few seconds, his breathing stopped. A person, the man was tired, wet, and injured. He was only clinging to the plank until he reached the island. It is not yet clear where this came from, but it is clear that they are both victims of the same reef that the captains avoid in that area. Always, that's the Caribbean. The first reaction of the two was not joy but fear. In almost 4 years of being alone, Serrano's appearance has changed. His beard was long, reaching his waist. His hair was messy, and his skin was brown and almost dark from too much exposure to the sun. He hardly had any decent clothes. The newcomer retreated. In his eyes, the man in front of him did not immediately look like a person of civilization. On the other hand, Serrano was also startled. The sudden presence of another person after a long isolation can cause a shock response. They both ran away. While running, Serrano shouted in Spanish, asking for protection from God against evil spirits. The newcomer heard that. It stopped and answered in the same language. He called Serrano and declared that he was a Christian Spaniard. At that moment, the fear was broken. They approached each other slowly, both thin, both scarred by time. They exchanged stories. One has survived for 4 years and is alone on the island. One is newly arrived from the tragedy. For the first time after a long time, Serrano has someone to talk to. From that day on, the dynamics of the island changed. Survival is no longer a solo fight. They were now two who would watch the fire, look for food, and observe the sea. But having a companion does not automatically mean peace. The two men, long tired, hungry, and tested in mind, need to learn to trust again, and here the true critical stage of their story will begin. In the following months, after they understood each other, it gradually became clear that the biggest change in Pedro de Serrano's situation was not the lack of companionship, but the return of purpose. Within 4 years of solitude, his hope was gradually diminishing. But now, there is a witness to his survival. There is someone to talk to, a partner in work, and above all, a partner in hope. But their being together was not easy. In their first year together, tension arose. They were both tired of long hope, the time of famine and exposure to the climate. The simple decision of where to put the water storage or who will watch the fire can be a cause of conflict. Sometimes they separated their positions on the island because of misunderstanding. On a small atoll that was almost just sand, that distance was not physical but emotional. But later they realized that they had less chance of surviving if they were alone again. There, the real turning point began. They chose to help each other instead of continuing to separate. They established a clearer system. They divided the time for watching the fire. They improved the method of storing rainwater. The gathering of driftwood and seaweeds for fuel became more organized. With their cooperation, they were able to catch larger and more numerous turtles. But the bigger change was mental. Having a companion prevented them from completely losing their sanity. Another year passed. Around 1535, they often looked at the ash-covered view. There were ships passing by in the distance, but they rarely came close. In every instance, they lit a bigger fire. They hoped someone would notice. And after almost 7 years since Serrano first became stranded, the moment came that would change everything. A ship drifted closer than the others. This is not the usual route, but it could be caused by the wind or avoiding another storm. In that case, they were more prepared. The fire they made was stronger and the smoke was thicker. The signal was more organized. They did not run without direction. They waited. The crew saw the smoke. A small boat was lowered from the large ship. As the boat approached the shore, two men with long hair and beards emerged from the island. The sailors in the boat were stunned. At first glance, this does not look like a civilized person. But when they heard the clear Spanish language and prayers, only then did they believe. This was the moment that changed their fate. From the island of silence, they will return to the world of man. After the two castaways were brought aboard the ship, a new chapter in the life of Pedro de Serrano began. The first few days inside the ship were not easy. Their bodies had long been adjusted to the island's climate. Food was given to them. Bread, salted meat, and alcohol need to be given gradually. Sudden changes in diet can cause illness. Their skin is sensitive, and their muscles are not used to the cramped space of the ship. Unfortunately, Serrano's fellow castaways' condition worsened. The long period of exposure, lack of nutrition, and physical fatigue may have severely affected his body. While the ship was sailing back to Spain, she could no longer endure the journey, and she died before reaching Europe. Serrano, on the other hand, made it home alive. Sailing in Spain, his appearance became the subject of conversation. He was not immediately recognized as an ordinary sailor. His hair and beard were still long, which, according to records, reached his waist. His body bore the marks of years of fighting in the sun and wind, but that was also the time. His strange story from his 7 years of being stranded on the island quickly spread. Serrano became living proof of a survival story that seemed unbelievable. So, it even came to the point that everyone wanted to see him, so he was shown. He offered himself to the public in exchange for payment, a way to earn money after many years of unemployment. His story was later included in the book Comentarios Reales de los Incas, written by Inca Garcilaso de la Vega and published in 1609. Here his name became more known in history. There are also records saying that the King of Spain gave him 4,000 Spanish silver coins as a tribute, a large amount in the 16th century. After this, Serrano wanted to sail back to the Caribbean again, but he was not fortunate and died in the middle of the voyage for an unclear reason. The island that became his home for 7 years was later called Serrano Bank. The story of Pedro Serrano is a reminder that humans have the ability to adapt to the most extreme situations. In the face of hunger, loneliness, and uncertainty, discipline and hope become a refuge. For many Filipinos who are going through hardship, the fight may not be an island, but poverty, sacrifice, or being away from family. The important thing is to not give up immediately. Sometimes, the most important decision is to stay alive and wait for the right opportunity. Because no matter how long the solitude, no matter how long the suffering, there is still a possibility that help will come, especially if your belief in God is strong and belief in your own abilities.